Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into the 143. This is another episode coming at you live with Under Review, episode 161.
The football season is officially over. Probably ended in the worst way possible.
Yep.
But we'll look forward to next year as the season has finally come to a close. But a lot to unpack.
This has been a season to forget for everyone but the Eagles. And, I'm not going to say congrats to the Eagles, but at least the Eagles showed up to play, I guess, for Super Bowl Sunday because the Chiefs certainly didn't. The one time we actually needed the Chiefs to win, they just didn't even come to play. We got a lot to say about everything that happened in the game and everything that's kind of been said after the game. And so we're just going to dive right into it. Stat of the week brought to you by our sponsor, Andrews Logistics. This is a whopper for you. So Mahomes was blitzed 0 times during the Super Bowl and was sacked 6 times. I don't even know the amount of pressures and all that stuff and QB hits they had, but being blitzed 0 times in a Super Bowl and being sacked 6 times is crazy. And that means the most guys that were coming at him at once were 4 to his 5 offensive linemen. And so Mahomes and the O-line just could not get it together Sunday night. And that was kind of the story of the game.
Yeah, the front four for the Eagles absolutely had their way with the Chiefs' offensive line. I mean, it was all game long. Just from the first whistle to the final whistle, they were going out there just being dogs in the trenches. Mahomes had almost no time, and every time he tried to step up in the pocket, he was getting hit. And so, obviously, seeing that they did not blitz a single time, and looking at how many pressures and QB hits and sacks and everything they have it's pretty remarkable. But your player of the week is Josh Allen. We called it a couple weeks ago who the league MVP was and should be, and it was Josh Allen. He finished with 3,731 passing yards, 28 passing touchdowns, and he threw 6 interceptions. So, big year for Josh Allen.
Great season.
Just about the same as every year. Make it to the playoffs, lose to the Chiefs, but he did it with less weapons. So I think that's what was pretty remarkable about this year was that it was completely on Josh Allen. But he gets an MVP, and he'll be chasing that ring again next year. They'll be good enough again. I think it'll be their time once again. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the meantime. But obviously, the game that we're here to talk about happened on Sunday. Just right from the get-go, the Chiefs did not look like they had a clue what was going on. It was just pure mayhem. Eagles defense came up, stepped up, showed out, absolutely silenced the Chiefs offense, made it very easy for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense to go out there and do what they did. And the Chiefs went into halftime with 0 points. It was 0-24 at that point, and everyone kind of knew the game was over. And it was just, what do you say to your team in the locker room at halftime to get motivated?
I think a big turning point in the game. I mean, you can point to so many, but I think the one shot that the Chiefs had to get any sort of momentum going at all was DeAndre Hopkins, minute 30 seconds left, wide open, had plenty of room to run. He would have at least made it to the Philadelphia 30-yard line before being tackled or pushed out of bounds. Just running a simple, slant, and DeAndre Hopkins drops a wide open pass. Chiefs give the ball back to the Eagles. I mean, just at that point, that was the only shot they had to put some points on the board, come out of halftime, and have a chance to put more up. But you could just tell from the very beginning that Mahomes and the offensive line had no idea what they were doing out there. It's been a while, or I can't think of a time that we've seen Mahomes like this, other than the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. in which they kind of did the exact same thing. They didn't really blitz him in Tampa Bay either, and the O line just was getting torn up out there. Huge credit to Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. He called a phenomenal game. Cooper DeJean with the pick six also, and then Zach Bond with the interception on like the 14, which was essentially a pick six. I mean, the Eagles defense basically gave them 14 points off of the turnovers they got. And so I'm not about to give a ton of credit to the Eagles offense because Kansas City defense came to play when it mattered. They stopped Saquon. And for the most part, they didn't allow very many offensive points in comparison. But, I mean, they got worn down by the end.
Yeah, obviously. It was 24-0 going into half, but 14 of those points essentially came from poor offensive play for the Chiefs because you had the pick six and then throwing a pick on the 14, setting your defense up for failure because they have nowhere to go. But even still, I do think it was kind of the DeAndre Hopkins drop that was really when it was over, because by that point you're thinking, okay, they drive down, 2-minute drill, score right before the half ends. It's
or kick a field goal.
24, and then they get the ball back, got to score on that first drive.
To make it a 2-score game.
And then it's 14-24, and then you're back in that game. But obviously, that's not the way it went from the get-go. Chiefs they just didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know what I was watching.
Yeah.
At no point in the game did I ever have any faith in Kansas City other than right when kickoff happened. But it was just really frustrating to see because, on paper, Philly was the better team by just about almost by a long shot, I think you could say.
Yeah.
Just they had the more complete team, but Mahomes and the Chiefs, they've been up against that before and they've won. I think we talked about it last week, how last time they played the Eagles and then when they played the 49ers last year, but it didn't seem to matter. What a lot of people have been talking about is that you can't compare Mahomes to Brady after this loss because Tom Brady in his era would never have gotten blown out this bad in the game that matters the most at the end of the season.
Well, he never did. He never did.
Yep. And my thing was, when were they ever in the conversation together as the GOAT? I mean, Obviously Patrick Mahomes is one of the most skilled football players we've seen in an extremely long time. He has the talent to get that GOAT status, but we're forgetting about the longevity that the GOAT had. He played until he was over 40, and he won a Super Bowl when he was over 40 in Tampa Bay. I mean, he's going to be the undisputed GOAT forever. I don't think that – me personally, whenever everyone was like, this ends the GOAT conversation, I'm like, when was it ever a conversation?
Yeah, I would have to agree. We've never on here said that Mahomes was anywhere close to Brady. What I do think is you can start that conversation if Mahomes gets to a point where he's tied with Brady. The only thing is Brady has the head-to-head, so in my opinion, Mahomes needs to win 8 Super Bowls before he can be the GOAT.
Yeah, and, obviously he's 2-0 against Mahomes in the postseason, one of them being in the Super Bowl.
One of them being in a Super Bowl, and I think that says everything it needs to say. And also, Mahomes' 2 Super Bowl losses this far have been blowout losses. And obviously, the first one in Tampa Bay, Mahomes was making the plays that he could make. Against the Eagles, he was not making any plays. He was not getting the ball out quick enough because part of that was him trying to scramble every single time and try to make plays. Well, sometimes you just got to drop back and throw like a quarterback. Sometimes you can't just be Superman and try to, break 4 tackles in the backfield. He just would step up and get clobbered in the pocket instead of dropping back, taking quick throws. And that's partly on the offensive coordinator, Andy Reid, calling the plays to not realize that you got to get the ball out faster than what they were doing. But, I saw a clip recently about Brady talking about how much film he watched on. You have 2 weeks to watch every bit of film you can find on the defense you're going up against, and that's what Brady did. Brady said he knew the other team better than they knew themselves by the time the Super Bowl came around. I'm not saying Patrick Mahomes didn't watch the right amount of film or anything, but I'm going to say he was not ready for what hit him Sunday night, and that was very, very obvious from the first quarter to the end of the game.
Yeah, they looked almost clueless against the defense. One thing you think about is this is what crossed my mind whenever the Chiefs were down 24-0 at halftime. There was a point in Brady's career when he played in a Super Bowl and he was down 28-3 in going into in that game. Obviously,
Yeah.
don't need to tell anyone about that because that's a very
No.
very recent memory for everybody. And so what he did instead was get his team motivated to go out there and play two of the best quarters of football you will ever see in your life to get them back into the game and then ultimately winning it in overtime. And for a second, I think I did kind of think, okay, maybe we'll see something like that from Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. Obviously, wishful thinking because you don't want to see the Eagles win the Super Bowl. But that was far from the case because I believe the Chiefs went 3-and-out to open the second half, immediately giving the ball back to Philadelphia.
It took them 9 possessions to even get across midfield. Was a stat that I saw. And here's the thing, man. The Chiefs haven't looked as good this season, but like we said, you're kind of just you're kind of just used to seeing at this point them kind of coast. As much as the word coast comes into play with these games, but kind of make their way tooth and nail to the Super Bowl and tooth and nail win the Super Bowl by a little bit at the very end. So everyone's expecting this to be at least a close game. Not saying the Chiefs definitely win, but I don't think anybody was prepared for what happened. But on paper, like we even said last week, on paper, this is what should have happened because the Eagles are the way better team. But we just, it's the Chiefs. We're used to seeing the Chiefs overcome all odds and win. I think the Chiefs got humbled. I don't think the Chiefs necessarily came ready to play this game. You saw a huge lack of effort on certain star players such as Travis Kelce, missed blocks, not continuing routes when the play was getting blown up.
At the very beginning of the game, he's dropping passes.
Not mentally prepared. Look, just because you've been the team of destiny for 2 years, it's not how the NFL works, any given Sunday, you got to win every single game, especially the last one of the season. And, they ruined their own chance at history. But most importantly for me and Nick, they let the Eagles have another Super Bowl. And, I don't know if I can ever forget that. So I just, I think I'm not happy because obviously the Cowboys weren't in it. That's number one. But number two, we at least wanted a good game. And America waited 2 weeks. This was the most watched Super Bowl of all time. And it was a waste of everyone's time unless you're an Eagles fan. So
the Chiefs just
I don't know which one
blown out.
I don't know which one was worse, the halftime show or the actual game. But all in all, I wasted my time Sunday night watching this garbage on TV. And I can't believe the Eagles won another Super Bowl. We're not happy about it. But also the Eagles, they're the best team this year. So, as
obviously managed way better than the Cowboys. That's a big thing we were thinking about and talking about during the Super Bowl is just looking at all the players they have on their roster and just thinking about how, we wish we could do something like that here in Dallas, but unfortunately we have Jerry Jones who refuses to make a competent move outside of maybe drafting a good player every now and then. We just rely on the draft every single year to save us, but it's never going to be that way. You're going to have to go and get the best players you can during the offseason, signing free agents, and then you can also draft a good player who's going to fit well into the scheme that you've already put in place rather than expecting a rookie to drag you up from the trenches.
You had two of the best GMs in football whose teams made it to the Super Bowl this year with Veach and Roseman. Those teams were there because of their GMs and because of the way that team was put together. I'm not saying other people, coaches, players, they're not there because of them, but like the GM is who puts these players on the team. The GM is who assembles the team. The coach coaches it. The players play the games, but the GM gets the guys in that room. And these GMs, I've got to give them credit. Obviously, most of the credit goes to Roseman this year. I mean, Philly, he put together a great Philly team. They are solid at every position except quarterback, and I'll still stand by that. But, I mean, coaching, players, I mean, Philly was a complete team this year. And, I mean, the Chiefs have been the Chiefs for the last few years. Just because they lost the Super Bowl doesn't discredit the other Super Bowls they won. So, I mean, these have been two really good teams with two really good GMs.
Well, I mean, like for the Eagles, you know, in the offseason, they went out and got the best running back in the game at that point. I mean, he was the best running back this year and was a huge part of their success in the regular season. And,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, you think about on the flip side, as a Cowboys fan, you know, we went out and signed nobody at the running
Zeke.
back position. Actually, we did sign Zeke, who is about 8 years past his prime. So that
who
was
quit halfway through the season as well.
And it's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating to watch because we as Cowboys fans, okay, obviously me and Joseph were being Cowboys fans our entire lives, right? We're 22 and 23 years old. And so this brand of Cowboys football is all we've ever known. You know, we weren't alive for the dynasty in the 90s. Choking in the playoffs, having a great regular season, and choking it away in the first round or in the divisional round. That's all we've ever known. You know, it's not surprising when we see it year in, year out, just because that's all I've ever known as a Cowboys fan. And
you'd almost at this point you'd rather not be in the playoffs
eventually. But it's just one of those things where the Cowboys will never win under Jerry Jones. I don't think they'll ever win with Dak Prescott as the quarterback.
No.
We'll probably get to see a Cowboys Super Bowl when we're 65, but I think we're a long way off from figuring it out, just because who we have in place right now is not going to be who we can build to win a Super Bowl.
We're going to talk more about the Cowboys all throughout the offseason. You know, we've got a lot to say when it comes to that. But one thing I do want to say before we go is I heard and talked to a lot of people who said they were Cowboys fans, but when I asked them who they were rooting for the Eagles. I don't care how bad the Cowboys are. I don't care how badly they're managed. Have fun being an Eagles fan because you're no longer a Cowboys fan. I don't care that we're bad. We don't want you anymore. You can never, ever, ever root for your division rival in any situation and still remain a real fan of that team.
Well, I mean,
that goes out to Astros, like Rangers fans for Astros. That's, you know, like Ohio State fans don't root for Michigan, even when they're not playing Ohio State. I mean, this is like, it's not a joke. This is ridiculous that I saw so many people rooting for the Eagles.
Yeah, I did. I talked to a few people in real life and then saw some people on Twitter who were Cowboys fans saying it. And I'll sit here and tell you, dude, I hope that I was wanting the Chiefs to go 0-17 this year, and I was hoping they lost by 50 in every single playoff game they played. But when it rolled around to the Super Bowl, I'll admit my tune changed. I jumped immediately back on the bandwagon. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is the best to ever do it. They're going to win the Super Bowl by 50, whatever. Because when it comes to your division rival, it is like you do not want to see them succeed at all. You know,
at all.
It doesn't make sense. You're obviously, if you were rooting for the Eagles, You can't call yourself a Cowboys fan. That's just sorry. I don't make the rules. It's just the way it works when it's your division rival. But it was
And I
it was
don't
baffling to see a few quote unquote Eagles fans coming out of the woodworks.
I don't care if you don't know any Eagles fans. I mean, I don't know any Eagles fans. Like it's not like, you can hate the Astros more, right? Because you know a lot of their obnoxious fans. I know it doesn't matter if you don't know any obnoxious Eagle fans, you've never dealt with that in your life. Like, these are our rivals. You do not root for the Eagles to win, ever, and still call yourself a Cowboys fan. So the Cowboys lost a lot of fans the Super Bowl as well, which is fine. We don't care. But, the ones who remain loyal, even if you hated seeing the Chiefs win, even if you were tired of all of it, all of the dynasty talk and the GOAT talk and the ref talk, like, you still were rooting for the Chiefs to beat the Eagles, not because you wanted the Chiefs to win, but because you wanted the Eagles to lose.
Yep, that's
And it
just
didn't
how it
happen.
works. Something worth mentioning before we go. I think this will be a good watch. Obviously, with the football season ended, the NHL is taking a break for the next 2 weeks in lieu of the Four Nations tournament that
Yeah.
begins tomorrow, Wednesday, and those four nations it's Sweden, Finland, Canada, and then Team USA. It kicks off tomorrow with Canada versus Sweden, and then USA is going to play on Thursday. I think that'll be something that's cool to watch. Obviously, football season's over, so you might be looking for something to fill that
Yeah.
void just for a little bit. I think that'll be something cool to tune into. It would just be for 2 weeks, so it's not something you need to get super invested in, but maybe tune into ESPN and give it a look. But anyways, here's like to end our show on Under Review. I brought you a quote from Dak, who is making his case for being one of the biggest bums on the planet. As he said, this was on the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. Credit to them. It's our turn, and it's on us. Might be the
Thanks,
worst
Dak.
take I've ever heard in my entire life, and it's things like this that get us made fun of. Like, this is
Yeah, we
why
can't get out of our
we
own
get
way.
absolutely ripped as the Cowboys fan base, because we've got our guys coming out saying
The
garbage
day
like
after the
that.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you do realize the people in your own city don't even have faith in you. Like, I'm sitting here telling you that you're the reason why we are never going to win anything. It's absolutely
We
ridiculous.
we have a lot more to say about that. So let that be a foreshadowing for a good amount of the offseason, because Nick and I will normally do like one or two Cowboys episodes, ladies and gentlemen. I think
There's
we're
going to be
about,
plenty to talk about. There is going to be plenty to
yeah,
talk about.
yeah. So, sit back and relax. Thank y'all for following us through this season. And we're just so glad it's over at this point. But at the same time, you miss football, you're ready for it to be back. And hopefully next season brings some more excitement for Cowboys fans. Probably not. But we thank you for tuning in with us this week. And we will see you next week with another episode of Under Review.